Welcome back everybody to Desktop Inventions. Well, the day's finally come. We're going to be saying goodbye to the V8 printing head, and we're going to be moving on to a new printing head design. And this time we're going to go full radial with blower fans. I think this design is going to be a lot of fun, so without further ado, let's dive right in. Alright, diving in with a quick and dirty prototype here. We can start off with the mounting plate. This will be mounted on the Ender 3 3D printer. Then we have a mounting bracket here. This is going to go onto the plate. And then our Dragonfly hotend will be mounted here. And then we'll have the Orbiter V2 mounted on top. Pretty simple stuff there. And here's the blower head design. I did this one very quick and dirty. There's a left, middle, and right section printed out, and I actually use a soldering iron to glue those together and use some metal header pins in there to give some structural support there. So just for testing purposes, it's not our final solution here. And then using two 50-15 fans on the left and right side. Those just drop into here, and they're using some screws to hold them in there. And then I have super short little ducts, about as short as I could make them. And since we're using the same fan on both sides, this one has the duct in the rear, and this one is flipped and has the duct coming at the front. So it is not a symmetrical printing head. And then in the front here, we'll plan to just put a 4010 Noctua fan here for the heater block cooling. And last but not least, we have the bed probe here. This one's a 3D touch. This will be screwing right inside here. It'll be sitting right next to the hot end. It is pretty tight, but I think it should fit in there just fine. So with that being said, let's get some wiring done and let's get this guy mounted up and test it out. And now to disassemble the old V8 printing head. It's super fast and easy with the magnetic design. I do really like this printing head design and I enjoyed developing it. It is really quiet, but one of the things that it lacks in is the part cooling ability. So that's my main reason in switching over to this new printing head design with radial fans. And the stock mounting plate here is pretty much wore out. These two nut inserts have been through a lot. I've changed the printing head so many times on this that these are completely stripped out. So I've got a new mounting plate here that we're going to swap that out for. Almost the same, but I see this new one doesn't have the hole there. That's to let some ventilation air pass through, so I'll probably end up adding some holes for that later. And this mounting plate is pretty easy to remove. Just remove the bolt and wheel out of the bottom, and then you'll unhook the belts from both sides, and then it just comes off of there. Okay, so I've got the top two bearings and wheels swapped out on the new mounting plate here. Pretty cool thing, if you haven't seen it before, the bottom bearing and wheel has this special hex nut that it actually has an eccentric circle in here. So when you turn this, these two circles are misaligned. When you turn this, it's actually moving this nut in and out away from the frame, and this is actually how you tighten your gantry on the mounting frame. Alright, and here you can see I'm just reversing the steps to attach the mounting plate, attach both belts on each side, and then assemble the bottom bolt and wheel in place. So now we can see this mounting plate is just a little bit different, so the belt is pretty loose, so we're going to turn in this adjustment, see if we can tighten that up. Okay, that belt feels pretty snug now, but our mounting plate is still loose on the frame. So we're going to take the wrench and turn that eccentric nut on the bottom to tighten this up. There we go, now it's tightly mounted on the frame. You don't want any slop in this bracket, otherwise it's going to show up as negative artifacts in your prints. Now to assemble the rest of this printing head, so first we'll install the mounting base and the Dragonfly hotend on that, and we'll use some M3 screws to tighten those. And next I'll assemble the Orbiter V2 Extruder on top there, and oh crap, looks like we ran into our first problem. There's no clearance for these wires. Oh well, that's nothing our friend Mr. Soldering Iron can't fix up real fast. And we're back on track. Now with proper clearance for the wires, we can screw the Orbiter V2 into place. Now the next challenge is getting the bed probe mounted into the printing head. I made this pretty difficult on the first prototype here, so I struggled with that a little bit. And the printing head is looking good and complete and ready to mount on the gantry. And crud, we forgot the hot end fan. Let's get that mounted up on there and do this again. Now we're looking good and on track. Let's get this mounted onto the gantry with just a couple screws on the right and left side. And just like that, we've got the first prototype up and running. Let's get on to the bed leveling and some printing. And for the first print, we'll start off with a simple overhang test. All right, let's take a look at the first print here is the overhang test up to 40, 50, 60, 70, and 80 degrees. And this print is looking amazing up to 70 degrees. Just the 80 degree mark is a little bit questionable there. But everything else looks pretty spot on. And furthermore, that was just 50% fan speed. So this was a really amazing result, and it wasn't too loud. So I think that's a win. After that first print, I realized something was missing. The DC converter on the front cooling fan. Yeah, that's way better. Alright, so now let's look at the water cup test. Here's just 25% fan speed, 50% fan speed, 75%, and 100%. So it looks like we have a new bar set for the water cup test. And another notoriously difficult test for me in the past has been the bowl test. So this is one to also test the overhang, except in a 360 degrees area to see if you have any dead spots with your cooling. And this one turned out really well. So it starts at 40 degrees, goes up to 50, 60, and 70 degrees here. And it looks pretty good in all areas. It's a little rough in transition from 60 to 70 degrees. But overall, it's able to print it, and there's no gouging or curling that we can see on the top. So it's pretty happy with the results here. And again, that one is at 50% cooling. So check this out. Printing version 2 of this printing head with version 1, and during this print, I forgot to add full supports. I just did supports touching the build plate, and look at it printing this circular feature. Looks almost perfect. I wouldn't have been able to pull that off with the last printing head. That would have got pretty ugly looking. Alright, so now I've got version 2 printed out here. A few small housekeeping upgrades. Got the groove here cut for the wires to go through. Adjusted the mounting holes on the side. Added a cutout here so I can more easily install the BL Touch. And as well fixed a few other little interferences and problems. And this one I decided to print at a 45 degree angle because last time I had some issue with this splitting along the layer lines when it wasn't. So now with our layer lines going this way, we shouldn't get any splitting across this screw because it is pretty thin wall here. So here's what the final mounting solution looks like. Got the BL Touch wires coming through here, the fan wires coming through here. On the left side we've got 2 screws holding that on, and on the right side we've also got 2 screws there. So pretty simple stuff, but it looks like it's missing something still. And now for one finishing touch. Well, I'm not in love with the look. What do you think? Should I keep the blower on top or design something else? Leave a comment down below what you think I should do with this design to tie it all together. And here's a shot of the printing head fully assembled and in action. And even with the parts cooling fans, it's not too loud, just about 50 decibels. And of course, you know we had to print a Benchy. So this Benchy turned out pretty nice. I think I was concerned about the front part of this hole, which usually curls up if you don't have good part cooling, but this one looked really nice. Do have an ugly seam here that I've got to work on improving a bit, and a little bit of stringing up in this tower area here. But other than that, pretty nice Benchy. Pretty happy with the initial results here. Well, I think that's going to wrap things up on the design today. Pretty happy with how the printing head turned out. The cooling is great, and now I can spend more time printing and less time worrying about cooling. Let me know what you think about the design in the comments down below. I'll be working on some future projects, so stay tuned for those. And until then, we'll see you next time at Desktop Inventions.